When three hikers set out in Australia's iconic Mount Glorious National Park, they were smart enough to have their cameras handy for all the incredible photo opportunities they would encounter. However, they were destined to witness an unbelievable sight. For Jessica Patton, a lady from Queensland, Australia, a normal trip to a national park turned into something very shocking and interesting. Consequently, on July 24, 2016, she decided to share her interesting story on social media. She couldn't believe the fact that a fun trip with her husband and father would lead her to so much fame. Jessica explained that the original plan was for her and her husband Luke to bring her dad to see some rock pools in a fairly secluded section of Mount Glorious National Park. While on their way exploring the park, the trio noticed a disturbance in one of the deep pools ahead of them. Over-brimming with the curiosity of watching some wildlife in the famous park, the family thought of the disturbance as a great opportunity for fulfilling their desire. But the situation changed drastically once they took a closer look at it. According to Jessica, the family was crushed to see this forlorn little face looking back. Contrarily, the family found a dog in a state of helplessness and utter distress. We approached cautiously, not knowing whether this was a domesticated or wild dog. Either way, we couldn't leave it there in the freezing water, Jessica said. The family was quick to comprehend the state the puppy was in, as it looked completely exhausted from all its attempts at struggling to climb out of the deep section of water it had fallen into. In order to save the dog, it was necessary for the trio to take some quick and effective action. It was of utmost importance that the dog didn't get injured during the whole process. The family knew they needed to be cautious and grabbed a giant stick in case the dog attacked after they pulled it out of the water. We gently looped a rope around its head, shoulders, and with a slight struggle, dragged it out onto the rocks, Jessica wrote. The exact opposite of what the family had thought of happened, as the sad, terrified dog timidly hid away from them and went back towards the pool instead of attacking them. When it turned away, they saw she was a female who had been neutered. Jessica and family knew this could only mean one thing. The dog had once been domesticated and she was a long way from home. They realized that leaving the dog there would mean pushing it towards death. She was in a completely inhospitable section of a bush, in a gully with cliff face and hectares of a national park on one side, and a scrubby, rocky, unscalable bank up to a busy road on the other. There were also no houses within at least a 5 km radius, and no obvious way for her to make her own way out of the gully, Jessica said while explaining the critical situation. The next major problem was that of finding the dog, as being terrified it had sought to hide just after being rescued. Fortunately, the family found it hiding underneath a thick undergrowth, shortly after some sincere efforts. Surprisingly, the little dog had dug out an area for herself. The trio was pleased to witness that their efforts hadn't been in vain, when the pooch responded with a lick on Jessica's hand, on giving it a gentle scratch on the head. The trio decided to name their new friend Miss Piggy, a funny name since the poor dog seemed to have gained some weight on her mountain adventure. The only task left now was to safely escort it off the mountain. Luckily, they had carried rope with themselves, which came in handy for tying the puppy up, so that it couldn't run away. This was the only possible option left, for them to rescue back the puppy safely. It took meticulous planning on the family's part to advance ahead. Explaining their course of action at that time, Jessica wrote, "We created a makeshift harness with non-slip knots, and tried to coax Miss Piggy to slowly climb through the scrub and loose rocks with us. She, predictably, wasn't overly keen on that, so we set about carrying her along, one person leading her and another pushing, carrying her from behind. The path ahead was extremely dangerous for poor Miss Piggy. As there were unstable rocks beneath their feet, the embankment was laced with vines, and the brush made it easy to trip. Things became scarier when Jessica's attempt to boost the puppy up over a small ledge failed, as her makeshift harness came undone. The only way I could stop her was to get in front of her and head her off before she got to open ground. With her escape plan thwarted, she slumped down into the undergrowth and resumed her state as an immovable object," Jessica wrote. Miss Piggy was now terrified and completely worn out. It was becoming pretty obvious that she wouldn't be able to make it up the bank unless we carried her, and so we were throwing around options for a harness and hammock setup using towels and ropes, they said. Finally, Luke remembered that he had a large canvas bag in their car. If they could walk just 15 minutes back up the creek, maybe Miss Piggy would get inside and they could carry her down. Fortunately, the bag was a perfect fit for the pooch. Yet when Luke and Graham lifted her, she was approximately 88 pounds. Together, they could carry her, but they were afraid to risk dropping her down the bank. They had to make their MacGyver apparatus completely foolproof with strong branches threaded through the bag's handles. It was a 30-minute climb through the bushes to deliver Miss Piggy to the bottom of the mountain and over to where they parked. A happy Jessica wrote, "When we opened the back of the car, we were greeted with a different dog. The little tail was going a mile a minute." In order to track down the dog's owner, Jessica posted on a Facebook page for lost pets in the area they had just hiked. Much to her surprise, she received a message just 30 minutes later from a man who lived about 9 miles from where she was hiding. He was absolutely sure this was his dog, who'd been lost since June 30th after wandering out of their yard, Jessica wrote. But she was crushed when he referred to the dog as Bob, implying he had lost a male dog. Thankfully, the dog's name was Ellie Bobby, named after Ricky Bobby, and Bobby's dad had plenty of proof that Miss Piggy was his little girl after all. The poor man had been searching for hours every night since she disappeared, never giving up hope that he'd find her. It was an emotional reunion of Bobby, Miss Piggy with her dad. It was a joyous sight for Jessica. It was a true miracle that the dog came out of the whole ordeal relatively unscathed. She had no signs of injury. Jessica says, "Whatever the story, we were just happy to have been in the right place at the right time to be able to help her." If you enjoyed this story, wait for our next story starting in 10 seconds. Love and kindness are two virtues, which are most essential for proper working of this world and interaction between people across the globe. This incident in Thailand will again prove this fact, that an act of love cannot be weighed and categorized into big or small. It is precious and vital. Thailand, a country located in Southeast Asia, is known for its monsoons. Well, by saying known for, I mean to say that this country experiences such heavy rain that hardly any nation would witness. Last year, the same happened in a suburb of its named Jomseon. The local residents had no other option than to run for any place they could hide, seeing the extremely heavy downpour. The area got flooded and it was extremely dangerous for anyone to stay outside and expose themselves to rain. While everyone was running for cover, one of them heard something strange, and it caught his attention. The man decided to search for the source of the sound. After some time, he was left perplexed, as, amidst the chaos, it was getting very difficult to search from where the sound was coming. Nevertheless, the man decided to take a closer look, as he thought it might be someone who needed help. On returning home, Brett heard a loud scream from his neighbor. He rushed towards his house to know what had happened. On asking, his neighbor told him that he could hear the sound of crying kittens but wasn't able to judge their location. Both of them decided that they had to do something about it. The situation was not at all on their side. It was an uphill task to search for someone as small as a kitten, amidst heavy rainfall and muddy water which had filled the streets. After a valiant effort, they were finally able to trace the sound back to the location. They were surprised on finding a kitten trying to cling to a piece of wood which was lying inside a barrel. The barrel had been in the garden for a very long time. The kitten was actually trying to save herself from drowning in the water, whose level was quickly escalating in the barrel due to the rain. The two men decided to save the kitten. It was Brett, who decided to hop into the barrel. But, he had to do this very carefully in order to avoid stepping on nails or wood. After carefully making his way down, he slowly picked the kitten up and tried to bring him to safety. Brett was careful while handling the kitten, as it was very small. He carefully lifted it, initially by the nape, and then, like a human baby, and brought it out of the barrel. Suddenly, both men heard another sound as they were on their way, going happily after rescuing the kitten. The two men were surprised. Is there another one inside the barrel? They questioned themselves. In a hope to find the other kitten, Brett quickly started swishing the water around. They knew that each minute was precious, as it could be the reason for the kitten's life or death. Even after some vigorous attempts, they were not able to find the kitten. So, they decided to stay silent for a moment and judge precisely the source of the sound. The strategy worked as they were able to locate where the other kitten was calling from. But this time, it was a little different. The second kitten was stuck in another barrel, which too, was in the garden. Fortunately, this kitten kept herself afloat by clinging to a flotation device. She was waiting for someone to rescue her. As she spotted the two men, she began to make more noise. There was one problem: the cats of Thailand, especially the stray ones, are known to be ferocious. They can viciously attack anyone who comes too close for their comfort. Since this one was not in such a bad position in the barrel as the other one, chances were that she could bite Brett. But, a poised Brett did it anyway. As expected, the cat got scared of seeing Brett approaching her and decided to bite him ferociously. Brett knew it was a tough task, but he couldn't leave the kitten to drown, so he made another attempt. Brett was exposing himself to the danger of getting injured by the cat or even getting infected by rabies. Forgetting all that, Brett decided to give it another shot. His friend's advice of picking the cat up by the nape succeeded, and finally, the cat was out of the barrel. But the drama was not over yet. Brett was still standing inside the barrel. He only had the option of handing over the cat to his friend, as throwing her out on the ground could lead to her getting hurt. This was the decision which could have proved to be very fatal for the cat. Brett's friend made a silly mistake of putting the cat on the ground while helping Brett to come out of the barrel. To their horror, they discovered that the cat had started to move in the direction of the first barrel, the one from which they had saved the first kitten. Luckily, Brett and his friend were vigilant and active enough to save the cat from falling in the water. There was one last problem waiting for them of finding the mother of the cats. They could not leave them on their own, as it would be risking their life again, and couldn't take them with themselves because of a particular reason. Cats are not meant to be kept as a pet for people in Thailand, as they fear it would get eaten by snakes or dogs. The only solution that seemed possible was that of leaving the kittens on their own. The rescuers realized that the cats were probably been kept in the barrel by their mother to save them from the floodwater. After a few hours, their mother returned and surprisingly, was comfortable to see them safe with both men. But what happened next? After the monsoon was over, the rescuers started taking care of the whole family. To this date, they feed and nurture those cats, becoming a family. This shows that acts of kindness can carry with itself significant consequences, such as somebody escaping a threat to one's life.